Hello there and welcome back to a slightly different type of ITH video. You see, next to me I have the Hyundai Kona electric. This is an average, everyday, ordinary family car that is fully electric. No performance, tilt, no massive alloy wheels, no all-wheel drive system. And what I'm going to do, or what I have been doing, is living with this thing for a week as my daily driver to see exactly what it's like to go full EV. Now, the Kona obviously is available as this full electric model. It's also available as petrol versions and hybrids and all that kind of thing. So there are certain things that are only seen on this electric version. First thing being, you've got this completely blanked off aero grille here. You've got some really weird little knobbles. Headlights, weird little knobble here, plastic. Don't quite know what that's all about. Someone can tell me, that I'd be very grateful. We have got some alloy wheels down here with little plastic bits. They've got more of an aero feel to them. Fairly small alloy wheel. I think these are 17-inch for quite a sizable body on this thing. Nice chunky tyres though. You know what that means? And actually got a comfortable ride. You're not crashing and bashing over bumps, especially as this, as you can see, is quite a tall car. This is a boxy crossover. It's not a full SUV, it's not a hatchback, so you're getting the best of both worlds. We've got a very, very bright green paintwork. Green, because the car is green, you see, EV. See what you're going with that. Over here, we have the charging port. There it is. That's where you stick it in and give it some juice. So yes, now we're down the side, you can see more of this kind of funky crossover styling. Bits of black plastic over here, but you know what? I think it looks quite nice. In this electric vehicle, we have a 64 kilowatt hour battery pack. That's quite big, actually. People generally don't sort of get that in this sort of car. What that means is big range. But anyway, that 64 kilowatt hour battery pack actually sits under the floor. It goes along under the floor of the car and sort of where the fuel tank would have been. Of course, as ever, we have to say a huge thank you to BOTB for making these videos possible. They give away someone's dream car every single week. You have to be 16 years old or over to play. It is a worldwide competition. There are over 150 cars to play from, and it's only 85p per ticket and upwards. Right, so onto the interior of this thing. Now, good things and bad things in here, I'm afraid. This comes in at £37,000. Quite a lot of money. And at that sort of price point, I'm afraid a lot of the plastics in here just don't really cut the mustard. I mean, all this around here, this is very hard plastic. There is nothing you can spec. You've got absolutely anything and everything you could possibly think of. Where you would normally have the gear lever sort of set up, you've now just got these 4 buttons because this is fully electric. You've got drive, park, neutral and reverse, and you've also got the parking brake electronic there. Here you've got heated steering wheel, very, very nice. You've also got heated seats for both people here and cooled seats as well for in the summer. You've got adaptive cruise control. You have got a 10.25-inch display with your infotainment and all that. You've also got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all those things. Plug your phone in, away you go. This has got a Krell sound system. I mean, maybe I'm out of the loop. I've never heard of Krell before, but the stereo in this is absolutely brilliant. This has got a rear camera, which is rubbish. I recently had the i30 Fastback N, same system, same camera, just as rubbish. There is keyless entry as well. You've got full climate and everything like that. The climate, you have to press the heat button in order to get it to pump out heat, because obviously there is no heat coming from the engine. One thing it's also got is a head-up display, which comes here. You press the little button down here, and as you might be able to see on screen now, the little plastic screen pops up. Safety equipment. Now, when I was using the adaptive cruise control earlier, it's got full sort of steering input. So if you veer anywhere near the white lines, it will steer for you. It'll steer you around a corner on a motorway. It's a little bit freaky, and it does tell you to put your hand on the wheel, obviously, because that's safe. But there are lots of buttons down here, and in fact, I'm going to read this. So, in terms of safety kit, we have got ABS, AEB, BSD, ESC, FCW, HAC, LFA, That's a Lexus, wasn't it? LKA and RCTA. Yeah. Okay, so as this is a family car, let's talk about practicality. Then down here, you've got a massive door bin that goes all the way down, because as this is an EV, and you can see, there's no centre drivetrain down here or anything. So what we've got is a big space under here. So there's plenty of room. You've got a couple more power points down there as well. One thing that's really neat, and it makes sense obviously, but when you have your phone charging in here and this is closed, you're totally fine. When you get out, it says there's something charging. Do you want to pick it up? See, because I would forget it, but I'm old. Moving on to the back. As always, I'm doing the Tim test. Yeah, it doesn't fare quite so well with me sitting behind my seat. Yeah, there's not a great deal of leg room for me in the back here. And actually the biggest problem that I've found is there's a very high floor, which of course, that's where the batteries are. So of course it's going to be higher than in a normal petrol car. But what that means is that my legs are shoved even higher up. I mean, you can see there's space there. Yeah, it's not comfy. Importantly, what's the boot like? Right, so how big's the boot? About this big, I guess. Yeah, it's about 330 odd litres, which is just average for the size. Ever so slightly smaller because of the batteries, but than in the petrol. But you know, it's a decent size, very usable boot. So, let's think about how this thing is to drive. Well, it's a family car, it's a daily driving thing, and you know what? It is really comfy. That's obviously down to the slightly taller tyres it's got and the ride height with the extra travel in the suspension. Put all those together and there's a big pothole and it just breezed straight over it. Given that we normally drive sort of performance-oriented vehicles on this channel, it's quite refreshing to get in something that's actually got a really nice ride. It's fantastic. I mean, one of the best things about electric vehicles is the fact that there's no noise. There's no noisy engine to bother you. It doesn't drone away in the background. So the whole aspect is very relaxing. Of course, what you do get a lot more of that you wouldn't have noticed before is road noise. But that is negated somewhat by the eco tyres that this has, which are low rolling resistance, which not only do they not only do they have less rolling resistance, therefore less drain on the range, they also make a bit less noise, which helps. But the downside to that, and it is a big downside, is that they have beep all grip. As an idea, this has got 201 brake horsepower. That's quite a lot of power and a mountain of torque. And what happens is you put your foot down to pull out of a junction and it just wheel spins. Oh, there it is. And again, and both those times I just tried to accelerate away from a junction or off a roundabout and the wheels just span. And this isn't even in sport mode. Of course, being an EV, we need to talk about the biggest thing that everyone talks about, which is range. And this, right here, this is where this Kona EV really comes into its own over a lot of other EVs out there at the moment. And that is all down to that 64 kilowatt hour battery pack. So the claimed range on this is 279 miles. Now, in a lot of EVs, they claim a range of X miles. It is always a lot less, like 50, 60 miles less, which is quite a lot when the range is claimed to be 200. I did 196 miles the other day. This is in very cold weather. It was between 3 and 6 degrees, so I had the steering wheel heating on, the heating on in the car, the heated seats, pumping out my tunes. I had and it was raining as well, so it was cold and raining, so I had the windscreen wipers on. Every drain I could possibly have on the battery was going on, and at the end of those 169 miles, 196 miles, I still had 8% battery left when I got to a rapid charger. So, in my book, That is fantastic. That was an absolute worst case scenario, and it still did just under 200 miles. When you think about charging an EV, it's a big issue. People always think, oh, I've got to charge it all the time. The big difference is, and it's a way of thinking that is completely different to how it is with the petrol or diesel car, is, for instance, now, this is the morning, and I've plugged in the car overnight, you see. It's just supping juice all through the night when no one's doing anything and the car's just sitting there. Now, of course, if you do need to do a longer journey, for instance, you need to drive from Essex to Manchester and back in the same day, you're going to need to use one of these. This is a DC charger. Now, this is a 50 kilowatt charger. They do 100 kilowatt and even more, that this can take up to 100, I believe, but this is a 50 kilowatt charger, and this can give me, I think it's 80% of the battery, which is about 200 miles, in 75 minutes. Yes, it's quite a long time, but you've got to think of it in terms of a destination charging infrastructure. You need to go somewhere, then it can charge while you're there, and then when you come back, it's all going to be fine. As I mentioned earlier, this car costs about £37,000 in premium SE electric trim. Now, what I like to do is just compare that to the standard petrol Kona, cost-wise. You've got to weigh these things up. With most people, everything comes down to cost. Now, this costs about £8 to £9, £8 or £9 that is, to charge to full overnight for about a 250 mile range if you're sort of going easy going. Right, so if you do 10,000 miles a year, you're going to spend between £320 and £360 a year on your electric for this car. That's pretty good, okay? Bear in mind, this car has 201 horsepower. Its 0 to 60 is 7.5 seconds. Just to compare that with the Kona, I'm going to look at the notes here, the Kona Premium GT 177. So that's a 177 horsepower petrol, a 50 litre tank for that at £1.30 per litre. Is basically going to be £65 to fill that car up, with a realistic range of about 375 miles. So at 10,000 miles a year, you're going to spend £1,735 on fuel. So it's a whole lot more. I mean, it's £1,700 versus £350 effectively. But, and here's the kicker, the Kona with the petrol engine with the same performance and an actual longer range and all that kind of stuff is £10,000 cheaper than this electric version. So to get that £10,000 difference back by buying the electric, it's actually going to take you 7 years of driving. The problem is currently is that battery tech is too expensive, and that's what's making these things more expensive. We actually did a podcast with the CEO of PodPoint, who actually make that rapid charger back there, and he talked in great length about how there's a road coming up which is going to be the price of batteries coming down, and eventually EVs are actually going to cost less than internal combustion engine cars to make. So the fact is, if you want an electric car, go get an electric car because it's fantastic and they are great, and this is a very good current electric car. It's got a fantastically big range, it's very nice, very easy to drive, looks great, and if you can weigh up the costs, you should go for it. So again, I've got to say a huge thanks to BATB for making these videos possible. They give away someone's dream car every single week, so please do go and check them out. And what you also need to check out are all our other videos. Go and look through our back catalogue if you're relatively new to the channel. We've got podcasts on there with all the best name YouTubers you can imagine. We've got loads of reviews, loads of fun stuff. And if you're not already, go and click that subscribe button because there's loads more stuff coming up. And the like button because we like that too. And I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.